so cool. I made the mistake earlier today of trying to write it. And get off that, get off that. All right, well, before we get too far along, I want to make sure that we thank the fine people up in our sound and lighting booth. They have done a wonderful job. Let's give them a nice round of applause. They were actually here before us today, this morning. And of course, there's sound cues, light cues, and there's mics to hook up and check everything like that. And we magicians, we can be a persnickety bunch, and they've been very, very helpful. So we appreciate all the work that those people are doing for us. Well, I'll tell you what, our next magician wants everybody to know, so you be sure you tell him. So I'm going to tell him. He is world famous in certain parts of Kansas. He is a longtime member of the International Brotherhood of Magicians, the Society of American Magicians, and the prestigious Academy of Magical Arts. He also wanted me to say something about how you graduated from KU. I don't know. But he is one of those guys that the minute you meet him, you'll like him. And I think you're going to see what I mean. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a nice warm welcome to Mr. Pete Walterscheid.
Have a hand for the Jayhawks from an old alumni school. Thank you, John, for that great introduction. I'm going to start out here with a very old trick. Older than I thought. Abra, cadabra. Ta-da! Yeah, it gets pretty old there. I don't think I want to use that one much anymore. The most asked question about me is, how did you ever get started doing magic? The boys backstage just asked me when am I ever going to quit. But all because of my uncle. See, my uncle knew when he knew one trick, and he did it so well. He did it with the little Ritz cracker. And, he was a strange fella. My uncle knew the exact month, day, and hour he was going to die. Well, the judge told him. He wasn't a very good example for his kids, we sent poor Uncle to the electric chair. I remember day of his execution, I was about this high, and I was up there, rapping on the glass and everything, and they're strapping Unc to the old electric chair. I never thought he cared much for me, but then I found out that I was his favorite nephew, because when they asked him if he had any last requests, he said, yes, I want Pete to come sit on my lap. Right then and there. Well, he used to do this trick with a little Ritz cracker, and it was really kind of funny. He'd put it in his hand like this, and then say he'd go around and around and around like this. Then he'd reach up and grab a little woofle dust, you see, call it woofle dust. He'd sprinkle over his hand, he'd open it up, and the cracker was gone. At age 4, I thought this was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. I remember it was Christmas Eve. I was sitting in the middle of the living room floor in front of this great big roaring fire. And the reason I remember it so well is because we didn't have a fireplace. He'd say, watch, stupid. Yeah, he always called me watch. He'd say, around and around and around she goes. What happens next? Nobody knows. Then he'd reach up in the air and he'd grab a little woofle dust. He'd sprinkle it over his hand like that, and he'd show me the cracker was gone. No, that's just a crummy trick. But that's when I got started doing magic. I thought, man, this is really neat, So I went to the library, I started reading about it. But I do like the way that they always have magic. If you go to the library, they have it under puzzles and games. And I always considered magic a lot more than a puzzle. I considered it should be in the theater arts, in the dramatic arts. But I come across something here, I don't know if this is a trick, a puzzle, a magic trick, or whatever, but you can help me decide. I come across some cards the other day, and I call them hole cards. You can see this is a hole card because it has a hole. That's why we call it a whole card, you see. Now, the second card is whole, complete, all one piece. Therefore, it's a whole card. See, the third card is like the second card, it's a whole card. The fourth card is like the first, which is a whole card. So you see, this effect deals with 2 whole cards and 2 whole cards. You follow? Yeah, okay, good. Because the back of each whole card is colored red. So if you put a whole card against a whole card, it looks like a spot card. But it's not a spot card, see, it's a whole card showing through the hole. And since you have 2 whole cards and 2 whole cards, it creates the illusion of 2 spot cards, but they're not spot cards, they're whole cards showing through holes. Unless you give a snap and a tap like this, and what you end up with is a spot card that doesn't rub off. Ah, now the plot thickens. Because see, that leaves you with 2 whole cards and a whole card. Now this was a whole card, but now it's a spot card, but we'll get back to that in a minute. What you do is you take the whole card like this, you give a couple taps, and you know what you end up with? A whole bunch of spots. No, I didn't think you'd care for that. So anyway, so what's left now is a whole card and a whole card. We won't use the whole card, we just use a corner of the whole card to give the impression of a spot card, you see. Now if I take this and give this a little rub and go across here like this, what looked like a spot card is now once again a whole card. And this whole card over here is now a spot card. But the spot is so big, it covers the whole card. I agree, but who are we about so many out here, you know? Well, okay, but so then what we have here is left is what I would call a whole card. Now, the way I've been talking, you can call this a whole card. You can call it a whole card. You can call it a whole card with a hole. Once again, it looks like a spot card. Give a snap and a tap, you've got a spot card with a hole. So now you have a spot card with a hole. Here you have a spot card so big it covers the whole card. And here you have a whole bunch of spots. And over here you have a single spot. And the reason this whole thing is so confusing is because everybody always watches the spots. Nobody ever pays any attention to, are you ready? The hole. And that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Got a lot of great magic coming up here for you. I'd like to end with something that, kids, I want you to know, I read a lot about the history of magic. And the effect I'm about to show you is over 150 years old. See, back before they had radio and TV, people would come to theaters and watch all sorts of shows. And one of the things they would come to watch magic shows, just very much like the one you're seeing here today. Back then, they had a lot of magicians dress up in Chinese garb, and they'd have these masterful Chinese illusions with paper dragons and all. It was quite colorful. So I'd like to show for you now my own version here of what is called the Chinese rice bowls. And this means I have to do a little costume changing, so bear with me. Talk amongst yourselves. Music, maestro, please. Chinese rice bowls.
That was entertaining and a little disturbing. Okay.